Alrighty, well, let's get us started for this evening. Good evening, all. My name is Devin Schultes. I am the program manager in the development and delivery department here at Cancer Support Community. Welcome to our live webinar for today. Just some housekeeping items to get us started. If you would like to ask a question during our presentation today, please do so using the Q&A feature in Zoom. Questions will be addressed at the end of today's presentation. Also, to turn on closed captions, please click on the CC button that you'll see in your tool bar at the bottom of your screen. All right. Now that we've got our housekeeping items out of the way, let me officially welcome you to the Understanding Clinical Trials webinar for patients and caregivers. Today, we're going to talk about clinical trials, an introduction for patients and caregivers. I'm extremely grateful to have with us today our two guest speakers. Here in a minute, I'll introduce you to our expert, who will help us understand the many complexities and myths about clinical trials, as well as our peer specialist, who will let us in on their own personal and lived experience with clinical trials. This slide is just acknowledging that the content presented in the following slides were reviewed for medical accuracy. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time this evening, I'd like to take a moment just to tell you a little bit about the Cancer Support Community. For more than 40 years, we at the Cancer Support Community have been relentless allies for anyone impacted by cancer. We help individuals manage the realities of this disruptive disease and get back to their version of normal. Whether you're accessing our free services in person at one of our 190 plus locations, online, or via our toll-free helpline, you are getting a team of licensed professionals providing patient navigation, financial counseling, genetic counseling, pediatric support, and more. Before we officially get started, I would like to take a moment to recognize our sponsors and our partner. We are grateful for the support of Merck and our partnerships with Longevity, Living Beyond Breast Cancer, and the Colorectal Cancer Alliance in bringing you this webinar this evening. Now, to introduce you to our wonderful speakers for today, we are joined by Dr. Sabrina Mayhew and Karen Oliver. Dr. Mayhew is a certified oncology nurse navigator specializing in clinical trial navigation for Cancer Support Community's helpline. Her journey into breast cancer advocacy began in November 2011 when she received her own breast cancer diagnosis. Motivated by her personal experience, she started the Angel Pillow Project, a nonprofit organization that has worked over the past decade to offer breast cancer survivors both physical and emotional support. Karen Oliver is our peer specialist for Cancer Support Community and will provide her lived experience with navigating clinical trials later on in this presentation. Our presenters do not have any disclosures. Welcome, Dr. Mayhew and Karen, and without further ado, I'd love to hand the mic off to Dr. Mayhew.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. Again, my name is Sabrina Mayhew, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar dedicated to clinical trials for patients and caregivers. We're going to begin with a quick overview about what I'll be talking about tonight. So we're going to explore what are clinical trials and why they are important. We'll look at the different phases and processes involved in clinical research. I will share some tips for discussing clinical trial options and discussions with healthcare providers. We'll address common misconceptions and frequently asked questions. We'll explore the significance of inclusive trial participation and why diversity in clinical trials is important. And then we'll end, I can share some helpful resources and provide an opportunity for questions and discussion. So first, we're going to explore what clinical trials are and why they play a crucial role in the healthcare and medical research. So a clinical trial is a research study that involves people to compare or test a new drug, treatment to the existing standard of care. We're going to talk a little bit about standard of care in a minute, but clinical trials are for where doctors and scientists are looking for ways to see if a new drug, treatment, or medical procedure is safe and works better than what we already have. Sometimes scientists find treatments that seem to be really promising in the lab, and clinical trials are a way to make sure that they work well and they're safe for real people. So standard of care. This is an important concept to know in the clinical trial process. And what standard of care is the currently accepted practice or best treatment options available to patients. So healthcare providers typically recommend these treatments based on current medical knowledge and guidelines. So these treatments have undergone extensive research, clinical trials, and have been proven to provide the best possible outcomes for patients. In most clinical trials, each patient is given at least the regular and accepted treatment for their specific cancer. It also helps researchers compare the new treatment that they're testing with the standard one. This way, they can see if the new treatment is better or safer. So a common misconception is that clinical trials are a last resort. And clinical trials are not necessarily a last resort, and their timing in a patient's treatment journey can vary depending on the specific trial, their specific cancer, or the patient's circumstances. Actually, some trials are used as an initial treatment option, not just when other treatments have failed. And trials can be designed to evaluate treatments for early stage disease or even for cancer prevention. The main goal of a trial is to improve cancer treatments and its impact on patients. So clinical trials are conducted to achieve several important goals related to cancer. They can improve treatments for various types of cancers. They explore treatment options, specifically for cancers detected in their early stages, which can lead to more effective interventions and better outcomes for patients. Clinical trials focus on addressing advanced, rare, or challenging to treat cancer types where the standard treatments may have limited effectiveness. Some trials are dedicated to finding improved methods for the early detection and diagnosis of cancer. They reduce the risk of cancer recurrence, help patients maintain their health and well-being in the long term. They explore ways to minimize the side effects and complications associated with cancer treatments. And clinical trials can improve survival rates for cancer patients and enhance quality of life. So why are clinical trials important? Again, they're essential for developing and testing new treatments, medications, and medical procedures. Clinical trials are when scientists try to figure out the right amount of medicine and how long it should be given to make sure it works the best for patients. So this helps patients get the most benefit from their treatment without getting too much or too little. Clinical trials evaluate whether the benefits of a new drug or treatment outweigh the potential risks, and they contribute to our understanding of diseases and cancer at a deeper level. Trials explore interventions and strategies that not only extend life, but also enhance the quality of life for patients, which includes managing symptoms, reducing side effects, and improving overall well-being. And doctors are getting better at customizing treatments for each person based on their unique characteristics, like their genes and specific markers in their bodies. And clinical trials are a big part of making these personalized treatments so patients can get the best and most suitable care for their needs. So what are the benefits of clinical trials to patients? Well, they improve health outcomes by providing really cutting-edge treatments and therapies that may be more effective than standard options. This can be especially important for patients who have limited treatment options. Participation in trials can lead to better disease management as patients receive close medical attention, checkups, and monitoring throughout the trial, which can help in early detection and management of any issues. Clinical trials contribute to the advancement of medical knowledge. Patients who participate are contributing to the development of new treatments and therapies, which can benefit not only themselves, but also future patients with the same condition. So what are the benefits of trials to the community? And again, they receive cutting edge treatments. They frequently incorporate the latest scientific knowledge and technology, offering patients access to updated and improved treatments. They get enhanced disease management. And then again, by participating in a clinical trial, patients contribute to scientific research and the development of new medical therapies. And really, many patients find satisfaction in knowing that they are helping advance medical science and potentially benefiting others in the future. So with all these benefits, few people join clinical trials. Only 5% of adult cancer patients ever participate in a trial. Reasons include a lack of awareness. Many people are unaware of clinical trials and the potential benefits they offer. A lot of times, doctors don't always inform patients about available trials, leading to many missed opportunities. There's logistical barriers, including additional time, travel expenses for patients and their families, especially for those who live far from the trial site. And then some patients may prefer to stick with established standard treatments as they are proven and familiar, and rather than opting for an experimental approach. There's also language and cultural barriers for non-English speaking populations, distrust of the medical system, and patients could be concerned about potential side effects or risks associated with experimental treatments, even though, as we will find, clinical trials are carefully monitored for safety. So before we get too far into this conversation, understanding the language of clinical trials is essential for individuals who want to participate in trials. I would say that knowledge of clinical trial terminology and concepts empowers participants to make informed decisions about their participation. So we're going to talk about the IRB, which is an independent body comprised of medical professionals, scientists, and community members. And its primary role is to review and oversee research involving human participants, to make sure that research is conducted ethically with the patient's safety and rights in mind. The IRB is an ongoing process. It continues to monitor patients in studies before the study starts, through the study, and even after. So understanding what the IRB is and its role in clinical research helps participants know that their rights and safety are being protected. Informed consent is a process through which potential participants in a clinical trial are provided with information about the study, and it allows them to ask questions and seek clarification before, during, and after enrollment. They're informed about the study's purpose, procedures, any potential risks, benefits, alternatives, and their rights and responsibilities. During informed consent, participants are informed that they have the right to withdraw from the trial at any time without penalty. So together, the IRB oversight and informed consent ensure that clinical trials are conducted ethically and really help protect the rights and safety of anybody who chooses to participate in clinical research. Just a few more definitions. The drug or agent refers to the medication or treatment being tested. It could be a new drug, therapy, a medical device, or any substance or intervention that researchers are studying to see if it's safe and effective for treating a specific medical condition. Randomization. Imagine flipping a coin to decide something. In a clinical trial, randomization is like flipping a coin to decide who gets a new treatment and who gets the usual one. This makes sure it's fair and unbiased, kind of like chance. And efficacy is a big word that is used a lot in clinical trials. And this just means how well something works. In a clinical trial, we want to find out if the new treatment is good at making people feel better and improving their health compared to the old one. So we're checking how effective it is in doing what it's supposed to do. Now, it's important to know what your rights are when you consider a clinical trial. You will have the right to take time and think about the trial. You don't need to rush this decision. Talk with your family. Be sure to request more time with your doctor or healthcare team if you have more questions later that you want to ask. You have the right to receive clear and understandable information about the trial, including what will be expected of you. You have the right to make your own decision about whether you want to participate in the trial. You can choose to join or decline without any pressure. And then again, you have the right to stop participating in the trial at any time for any reason without facing any penalties or negative consequences to your medical care. You also have the right to request information about the trial's results once it's completed. You can inquire also about the results of similar trials that may have an impact on your treatment decisions. And really, these rights are meant to empower you as a participant and ensure that your well-being and autonomy are respected throughout the trial process. So now we're going to switch and talk with one of our clinical trial peer specialists, Karen Oliver, and she's going to tell us her personal experience in participating in a clinical trial. Karen, I think you're on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, thank you everyone, and sorry about that. I was so excited. I just want to give you a little bit of background about me personally. I am the daughter of a woman who died of advanced stage breast cancer. And that was in 1971. My mother was only 43 years old at the time, and I was 18. When I became 39, I was also diagnosed with breast cancer. And so that fueled my passion in being an advocate and doing all that's necessary to let everyone know that catching this disease early gives you a better chance of longevity in life. Now, in 1992, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer at that time, and the cancer that I had was inductal carcinoma in situ in my right breast. I did have reconstruction, mastectomy and reconstruction. And it wasn't until several years later that I noticed a swelling in my arm, which is called lymphedema, in my arm and my hand. At that time, I was approached about doing a study, which was the physical activity and lymphedema study at the University of Pennsylvania. I did go into that study, and it was for 18 months. With that study, they wanted to see how the quality of life is impacted on a person with lymphedema using certain exercises, massage therapy. We had bandage wrapping to compress the swelling, even a device for I guess doing a manual pump to kind of do the massage, and also exercise. And there were, I was followed for the 18 months. I was monitored for those 18 months, doing certain exercises, going for measurements, doing manual and the lymph drainage massages. And the whole process really helped me learn how to manage this condition, which I would be living with, and to manage it and not have it expand or get worse. So throughout this time, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about me. I learned a lot about, how lymphedema works. It doesn't only affect your arm or hands. It can also affect your legs. But with breast cancer patients, when they take lymph nodes, if you've had positive lymph nodes, that kind of and starts that process, or it can happen. Doesn't happen to everyone. I just happen to be that person that happened to have lymphedema. And with that, I was able to get garments, lymphedema garments, gym membership. So these are the good things about going through this study, as well as learning how to manage this in my arm. I didn't really face any obstacles. They worked with me in regards to my work schedule. The only downside it really wasn't a downside because it was necessary. It was really necessary to do the surveys that we had to do every so many months. It was just a little time consuming, but it was definitely necessary. And in regards to, I think clinical trials, as working as a peer specialist for the cancer support community, talking to people, listening to their story and, answering their questions about my personal story. It's very helpful. I was trained very well with the different things I need to express to them or the questions that they ask me. I'm not a medical professional, so all those things were always delegated back to their doctor. But I think clinical trials are necessary, especially within the African American community, because we need a greater, I don't want to say pool of individuals for different treatments and experiences in order to help with clinical trials for a greater population. There are a lot of regulations in place, so it's not something that you're like, just a guinea pig. That, one of the myths is very well dispelled in that. So I truly believe that, with more folks involving themselves in a clinical trial, if that's what they want to do, it really helps a broader range of individuals for a greater and accurate result in the drugs and treatments that they would be receiving. Sabrina, did you have any questions for me?
No, but thank you so much. I think personal patient stories are so important. People need to hear from people that have already gone through trials and just understand their experience with trials. So thank you for talking today and telling us your story.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
So we're going to move on. And now we're going to discuss how clinical trials work. And this slide kind of gives you a brief summary, and then we'll go through each step in more detail. But in simple terms, clinical trials have different stages to carefully check if a new treatment is safe and works well. They start with a small number of people and slowly involve more as we collect more information. And this approach helps ensure that only safe and effective treatments are approved for widespread use that benefit patients and public health. So we're going to go on to where we start. So preclinical trials are a bit like practice rounds for new treatments. It happens in the lab with animals before it's given to people. So scientists will study a new substance to understand how it works and how it might help with a specific disease. They look at it under a microscope, figure out how it behaves. If it looks promising and helps with the disease, that's a good sign. They make sure it's not harmful. They use animals to see if it hurts any part of the body. They want to make sure it's safe for people. And only if everything looks good in these steps will they start testing it in people in clinical trials. So preclinical research is a crucial stage in the development of new drugs or agents before they are tested in humans. Phase 1 of a clinical trial is like the first test drive of a new treatment. The main goal of phase 1 is to make sure the treatment is safe, and they start giving it to a small group of healthy people or people with the condition they want to treat. They figure out how much of the treatment to give and how to give it. So it's like finding the right dose for it to work, but not cause problems. They watch carefully to see if there's any side effects, if they find the maximum amount that people can safely take without any bad side effects. That's important to know. Stage 2 of clinical trials, now we have more people involved. Stage 2 involves a larger group of people who have the condition they want to treat. This helps them get a better idea if the treatment is effective. So now they focus more on whether the treatment actually works against the disease. They want to see if it helps improve people's health or symptoms. They keep an eye on safety too. They want to make sure the treatment is still safe for this larger group of people. Phase 2 kind of helps them fine-tune the right dose and how often to give the treatment to get the best results. It may involve randomization to different treatment approaches or arms. So phase 2 is like a bigger test to see if the treatment is both safe and effective for more people with the condition. If it looks good in this phase, they may move on to a larger study in phase 3. So phase 3, they involve a lot of people who have a certain type of cancer. This helps make sure the treatment works for a wide range of patients. Phase 3 is all about checking if the treatment really works. They want to see if it makes people with the disease better or if it's more helpful than what's already available. They still keep an eye on side effects. They still watch closely for any bad reactions to the treatment. Safety is always important. So it involves a lot of patients, often hundreds, and goes on for a longer time. This way they can get a more solid data about how well the treatment works and if it's safe over a longer period. Now, the data from phase 3 is what they use to ask the FDA, which is the people who make sure medicines are safe, to approve the treatment for specific use. If it passes this big test, it can become a new way to treat the disease. So phase 3 is like the final big check to make sure a new treatment is safe and really helps people with a certain cancer before it can be used widely. And now phase 4 is like the phase where they keep a close watch on a treatment even after it's been approved and used by lots of people. By phase 4, the treatment has already been approved by the FDA and doctors are using it to help patients all over. It's part of standard of care now. But they don't stop there. They usually keep a really close eye on how well it's working and if it's still safe. They want to make sure it continues to be effective and doesn't have any unexpected problems. So phase 4 is like the ongoing checkup for treatment to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do and doesn't cause any surprises when used by many people in real life healthcare. And it's also important to note that not all treatments or interventions progress through all phases. Not all trials reach the market. Some drugs also move faster through the process if early on they show significant life-saving potential. But this is kind of a guideline about how a drug moves through the process to being the standard of care for everyone. So now the question is, how do I participate in a clinical trial? And I would say, first of all, that participating in a clinical trial requires you to be your own advocate. You need to ask important questions along the way. So at the time of diagnosis, don't hesitate to inquire about clinical trials right from the start. When speaking with your healthcare providers, you can ask questions. Is a clinical trial a good option for me? If it is, when should I consider participating? What specific clinical trials are available to me right now? And then if the timing isn't right at the moment, when might a trial be right for me? Active participation and self-advocacy are essential in navigating the world of clinical trials. So finding a trial involves several steps, and it's helpful, again, to be proactive and well-informed. First step you always want to do is consult with your doctor and treatment team. Discuss your interest in clinical trials with them. You can explore medical facilities and research centers near your location that participate in clinical trials. These institutions often have a dedicated staff who can help you guide you through the process. And then you need to do your own research. Take the initiative to research clinical trials independently. You can use online resources, clinical trial databases, and patient advocacy organizations to find information on trials that may align with your medical needs and preferences. So if you do choose to do your own research, you might want to try looking online. You can use established resources like clinicaltrials.gov. It's really one of the most reliable and comprehensive sources for finding clinical trials. However, it can be overwhelming sometimes to navigate it. There are advocacy group websites that you can look at. These websites offer user-friendly search tools and information tailored to specific medical conditions. You can explore cancer center websites. So major cancer centers like MD Anderson and Dana-Farber maintain extensive databases of clinical trials specific to cancer types. These sites often provide detailed information about ongoing trials, eligibility criteria, and contact information. And while these online resources are valuable, again, it's crucial to emphasize that communication with your doctor is key. Your healthcare provider can help you understand your diagnosis, assess your eligibility for specific trials, and guide you through the process. It's also important to stay informed and updated. Clinical trials are dynamic and new ones are constantly being initiated. So make sure you stay informed and periodically check the websites and resources for updates and trial listings. So communicating with your doctor, this again is essential in clinical trials. And how should you communicate with your doctor? So talking with your doctor about a trial that you found online or interested in, your doctor can help you organize what to expect in the trial. This conversation keeps your care clear and focused on your treatment goals, and it's all about making sure that you have the right information and support to make the best choices for your health. So be open to the option of a clinical trial. You can talk to nurse practitioners, nurses, research coordinators. These healthcare professionals are often well informed about clinical trials available at their healthcare facility. They can help answer your questions. You can schedule a dedicated appointment. You can request a separate appointment with your doctor specifically to discuss a clinical trial that you might have found. This ensures that you have sufficient time in your appointment to address all your questions and concerns. Again, if you look for trials on your own, discuss them with your doctor. And then if your doctor doesn't bring up a trial, don't hesitate to bring up the topic of clinical trials. It's your healthcare journey, and you have the right to explore all possible treatment options, including clinical trials. It's also helpful sometimes to make a list of questions, take time to write down your questions in advance. This way you can have a productive discussion with your healthcare team. And then I say, take your time. Don't rush into a decision. Weigh the pros and cons, consult loved ones, and consider all factors before making a choice. Take the time you need to consider benefits, risks, and how the trial aligns with your goals and values. And always don't hesitate to get a second opinion. Seeking a second medical opinion is a valuable practice, especially when considering clinical trials. And really, another medical professional can provide fresh insights, ensuring that you make an informed choice that aligns with the best interests and your health goals. So at Cancer Support Community, we have resources on clinical trials that you can find online. You can print these out, take them with you to your doctor's appointment. So clinical trials are sometimes accompanied by myths and concerns, and I'll go through a few of these misconceptions and try to address any common concerns that many people have about clinical trials. So the first one refers to the misconception that participants in clinical trials are treated as experimental subjects without regard to their well-being, safety, and dignity, similar to how a guinea pig might be used in a scientific experiment. So this is untrue. And as we talked about the different phases and the rigorous pre-trial testing before a new treatment or drug is tested in a clinical trial, as we talked about, it goes through preclinical research. It's evaluated in the lab to make sure it's safe. And by the time it reaches human trials, researchers really have a good understanding of its potential benefits and risks. You are not a guinea pig in the process. You're joining a well-monitored phase in the development of a new treatment. And in the United States, clinical trials adhere to strict standards. We talked about the IRB. Before a treatment can be tested in a clinical trial, it must be at least as good as the current standard of care, or there must be a strong belief that it could be even better. Placebo. So there is a myth that participants in clinical trials are given a sugar pill instead of actual treatment, and they may not receive any benefit from participating in the trial. This is also untrue. Everyone in the trial will receive at least the standard of care. You'll receive medical attention, monitoring, follow-up care to ensure that your well-being throughout this study is kept in mind. And you're always going to receive the best possible care that we have at your cancer center. Again, that's called standard of care. So you'll either get that or the experimental treatment. Some people are concerned about the cost associated with a clinical trial. And there's a misconception that participating in a clinical trial is always expensive for the patient. And this myth can keep people from even considering clinical trial participation. So in many clinical trials, the cost associated with the new treatment, study-related tests, and medical visits are covered by the trial sponsor or the research institution. This means that participants don't need to pay for these aspects of their care. Health insurance may cover some costs associated with clinical trial participation. But I would say in some cases, participants may need to travel to a trial site, and they may have some additional costs, such as transportation and lodging. But they really need to know that some trials provide reimbursement or stipends to help with these expenses. Again, that goes back to being your own advocate in this process. Also, Many research institutions and advocacy groups offer financial assistance programs to help participants with out-of-pocket expenses related to clinical trials. So it's essential for participants to discuss the financial aspects of the trial during the informed consent process. This allows them to fully understand what costs are involved upfront before they even get started. And this myth we've already talked about earlier on in the presentation. Clinical trials are not always a last resort. In fact, they serve a variety of purposes and are not limited to being a final option for treatment. They can be used for early stage treatments. Some trials investigate new treatments or therapies in the early stages of development, and patients can consider participating in these trials when standard treatments are not available or may not be effective. Clinical trials may compare new treatments to existing standard treatments. Trials can be conducted to evaluate prevention and screening methods. And some trials focus on improving quality of life for patients and manage symptoms like nausea, pain, fatigue, and GI or stomach issues. New medications or interventions can be tested to alleviate these side effects. So it's important to understand that clinical trials are not just a last resort, and patients can consider trials at various stages of their healthcare journey. So there are some considerations to think about when participating in a clinical trial. Changing doctors or treatment centers may be necessary if a patient decides to participate in a trial that's not available at their current healthcare facility. So you may need to change locations. It's always important to discuss your decision with your current healthcare team. They can provide guidance and ensure a smooth transition. Often you can keep your original healthcare team and now you have a second healthcare team. And then your healthcare team can also assist in identifying a suitable clinical trial and can facilitate the transfer of medical records and provide recommendations for potential doctors or centers. But really, changing doctors or treatment centers is a really complex decision, but it's often a necessary step to access a clinical trial that may not be available at your current healthcare facility. And your care team is there to guide you through the process and ensure that your needs are met. So now we're going to talk a little bit about diversity in clinical trials, which is crucial to ensure that medical research findings apply to a broad range of patients. So historically, the healthcare system has excluded certain groups from clinical trials, and some people were not given information about trials. And this exclusion has led to underrepresentation, fewer invitations to participate, and a lack of diverse perspectives in medical research. So who were these underrepresented groups? So this includes Black or African American, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, Native American, and other racial and ethnic minority populations. It includes the medically underserved who had lack of access to medical care, older adults. Clinical trials have had age restrictions, children and adolescents. Pediatric populations are often underrepresented due to ethical and logistical complexities of involving minors in research. Individuals with limited financial resources may find barriers to participation, such as transportation and childcare issues. Individuals with disabilities, non-English speakers, rural and remote communities, people who reside in rural areas may have limited access to healthcare facilities and clinical trial sites, the LGBTQ community. So addressing these disparities, increasing representation of groups in clinical trials is needed so that medical research findings are applicable to a diverse population. So what we know, there's a significant disparity in clinical trial participation among different racial and ethnic groups. So Black individuals make up approximately 13% of the US population, but their representation in clinical trials is only 5%. And this underrepresentation raises concern about the generalizability of trial results and the effectiveness of treatment for Black patients. Hispanic or Latino individuals constitute about 18% of the US population, but their participation in clinical trials is as low as 1%. So addressing these disparities is crucial to ensure that clinical research reflects the diversity of the US population. So cancer rates can vary among different racial and ethnic groups, with disparities seen in various communities. So Black or African American communities often experience higher cancer incidence and mortality rates compared to other racial groups. They have a higher prevalence of certain cancers such as prostate, breast, and colorectal cancer. Black women face disparities in breast cancer and cervical cancer, and breast cancer mortality rates are higher among Black women, and they're more likely to be diagnosed at later stages. Cancer rates among Hispanic populations can vary by subgroup and region. And some cancers like liver and cervical cancer have a higher incidence among certain Hispanic populations. And they are twice as likely to die from liver cancer than non-Hispanic white persons. They experience problems with access to healthcare due to language barriers, and immigration status can impact cancer rates within these communities. Asian communities are very diverse, and cancer rates can differ significantly among various Asian ethnic groups. So, for example, Asian American women have higher rates of liver and cervical cancer. But it's important to note that these disparities are really influenced by a complex interplay of factors, including socioeconomic status, access to healthcare, health behaviors, genetics, and historical factors. And efforts are ongoing to address these disparities to promote health equity in these communities. So participation in trials can be hindered by various barriers, particularly for LGBTQ individuals and people from communities of color. So some of these barriers include mistrust in medical research. We have a history of unethical medical research that has led to a lack of trust in clinical trials among some minority communities. There's concerns about exploitation and unethical practices, which can discourage participation. Many individuals may not even be aware that they qualify for a clinical trial. So information about trial opportunities may not be effectively communicated to diverse communities, which leads to missed chances for participation, underinsurance, discrimination in healthcare, financial barriers, the costs associated with clinical trial participation, such as transportation and housing, can keep people from joining a trial if these expenses are not covered by the trial sponsor. So clinical trial diversity is essential for several reasons. Clinical trials should mirror the diversity of the population that will ultimately receive the treatment. This ensures that the safety and effectiveness of the treatment are accurately assessed across different demographics, including age, race, gender, and other factors. It helps prevent potential biases that may exist in healthcare. A diverse participant pool in clinical trials allows research to identify and tailor treatments that work best for a wide range of people. What works in one group may not work the same for another, and clinical trial diversity helps pinpoint these variations, which can lead to more effective and personalized treatments for all. And then, of course, different communities may respond differently to treatments due to genetic, lifestyle, and socioeconomic factors. So really, diversity in clinical trials enhances the quality of research, promotes health equity, contributes to more effective and personalized healthcare, and improves healthcare outcomes for all individuals. So overall, clinical trials allow for more opportunities. They advance our knowledge of cancer. This knowledge leads to improved strategies for prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. Clinical trials develop new treatments to help improve existing ones. As a result, patients may benefit from more effective therapies, including targeted treatments and immunotherapies. Clinical trials improve the quality of life for patients. This includes managing symptoms, reducing side effects, and offering more patient-centered care. And clinical trials have played a pivotal role in developing breakthrough treatments that have led to better management and, in some cases, complete cure of a specific type of cancer. So by participating in clinical trials, it's very empowering for patients where they can contribute to these outcomes and help advance cancer research and improve the quality of cancer care and extend and improve the lives for many patients.
Thank you so much, Sabrina and Karen, for joining us today. The information insights you have shared are definitely valuable to all of our listeners here this evening. If you have any questions about clinical trials, including resources about them or understanding if a trial may be right for you, please feel free to connect with our experienced and licensed clinical trial navigator at our cancer support helpline. Their direct number on the screen there is 888-793-9355. And you may also visit our website at cancersupportcommunity.org. CSC also has a peer clinical trial support program. It's a free service where Black patients, survivors, and previvors are connected with a peer specialist who has previously participated in a cancer clinical trial. For more information about that program, you may visit their website on CSC's page as well. And there'll also be links added into the chat for My Lifeline at Cancer Support Community. And this is where you can create a network of people to provide support with throughout your cancer experience. We also have a cancer experience registry where we collect information from patients, survivors, and caregivers to better understand the impact that they experience from a cancer diagnosis. Lastly, CSC has a grassroots network available. If you would like to learn more about that information, please feel free to visit the link posted in the chat. I also wanted to thank our partners for bringing you this webinar this evening: Living Beyond Breast Cancer, Longevity, and Colorectal Cancer Alliance. I'd also like to mention support from our sponsor, Merck. So it is now time for question and answer. If you've not done so already, please feel free to post your question in the Q&A in the toolbar below. Should we not address your question, please feel free to call that helpline at 888-793-9355. So first off, I do have a couple of questions for you, Karen. Before you're considering a trial, did you personally have any myths about a trial that you would like to share with our audience today?
I personally did not have any myths. I knew about the different clinical trials within the African American community, years and years ago. But I personally did not, that wasn't a decision for going with this study or not. Because of the swelling of my arm and the way it happened, I was really eager and did some homework in finding out, how this could help me. So I did not personally have any, there were no myths for me to like dispel not doing this. One thing though, I think I can, something that Sabrina had mentioned in regards to, talking to your doctor. Although I was diagnosed with lymphedema and started going to a physical therapy, I didn't know to ask about any studies at that time. And no one really approached me at the physical therapy office or at my primary care doctor. It wasn't until later, I guess, because I was doing physical therapy that I was approached by this study, but I didn't know anything about it. And it wasn't originally, given to me. It was a little later on that, because me being a patient with this particular Penn office for physical therapy, that I was invited to look into it.
Okay, thank you for that. I also wanted to ask you, Karen, while I have you, did you or any of your family members have any concerns about you participating in a clinical trial?
No, not me, but being a peer specialist with the cancer support community, I have spoken with patients who have called in, inquiring about clinical trials that do get pushback from their family members. And my suggestion to them is to make sure that, the doctors not just speak to them, but their family members, and have everyone on board, with this decision, especially close family members. But in regards to the study that I took advantage of or I participated in, no, I did not have any pushback from my family members.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to, I think Sabrina, you had mentioned this earlier in the presentation, but could you elaborate more on, like you mentioned, how clinical trials are commonly covered through different routes, but I wonder if you could also elaborate more on if people have questions about costs of clinical trials, who they can go to on their cancer team for questions or concerns about finances.
Sure. And I really think that this discussion should happen even before they start the clinical trial, during the informed consent process. Make sure you talk to your clinical trial team and really map out what costs will be involved, what's covered, what's not covered, and if they provide any stipends or reimbursements for what's not covered. And for each trial, this is going to be different. So it's really important to have that conversation before you even get started, so there's no surprises.
Thank you. Another question here that we got in, how is my oncologist kept in the loop? I don't think they're referring to maybe what's how they know what's happening, what's available, things like that.
So kept in the loop in terms of if you start a clinical trial, maybe at a different facility, you can still keep your original oncologist and still see them. They're also going to be getting reports about what's going on with your clinical trial. So you don't have to leave your doctor necessarily. You may get an additional doctor, but you can still keep open communication with oncologists that you started with.
Thank you. I'm wondering if either of you could probably speak to this potentially, speak more to about the caregiver experience if they have a loved one who is maybe considering a trial or anything like educational resources that they may want to look up.
Sure. They can, like we talked about, online resources. If they find some clinical trials that they're interested in for their loved one, they can call us on the helpline. We can go through those trials with them. We can help them communicate those trials to their loved one and with their loved one's oncologist.
Thank you for that. In sake of time, I do want to get through just one or two more questions here. We had a question about clinicaltrials.gov and that website. It seems like this person had some issues with their kind of like the status of the study not being always accurate. I don't know if you can, Sabrina, maybe speak to how people can find out, you know, what's currently up to date and getting to know if a study is still enrolling participants.
Right. On the clinicaltrials.gov website, there is a box you can check that says the study is current. That website is really difficult to navigate, and it's just like a storehouse of all trials that are present and past. Again, getting with a clinical trials navigator to help determine if those trials are still actively recruiting. And then all trials on that website often have phone numbers. You can call that trial site directly, say, are you still active in recruiting patients? And then always ask them, if they're not, do you know of a trial that might be similar or good for me? You can get that information from them as well.
Thank you. And let's see, is it true that if you're in a trial, you're watched very closely and may even get more care?
Definitely. You have a whole nother healthcare team that's monitoring you through your cancer journey. So a lot of people are really pleased with the fact that they have this additional group of healthcare providers that are looking after them and watching them.
Yeah, I can speak personally to that. Yes, I was monitored and watched, and with, you know, any problem that I had, I went right to the care team who was doing the study, and, you know, it was either resolved or we found a way to resolve any situation that I came up with. And yes, they did monitor me very closely, just not just periodically, but it was through that 18 months of the study, I believe I saw them, you know, at least once a week, if not more, if, you know, depending on what was needed. But yes.
And I will ask one more question that came in, and we'll have to close out for the evening here. Are there any initiatives to help with patient awareness in terms of partnering with different care centers and doctors to get the word out about participating in clinical trials so it's not approached as a last option?
Right. There's a lot of advocacy groups right now that are really interested in getting the word out about clinical trials. You can participate in clinical trial advocacy for your specific cancer. You can look at those advocacy groups and ask about, you know, what are they doing to improve communication about trials. It's important.
Thank you. And let's see, one more question here. Karen, I think this is more so for you. Through your conversations as a peer specialist with clinical trials, What do you see are the biggest concerns that patients face, or any barriers that they speak to you about?
Okay. Yes, a lot of the calls that I've received in that vein have been a lot of concerns about financial, you know, travel to the clinic where they may get involved in a clinical trial, and those that I've spoken to who are in a clinical trial, sometimes it can be the financial piece that is a concern. And also some family dynamics, in regards to especially those with young children and traveling, or if they're a clinic near to them, there might be a trial that's offered that is not close by. So those were some of the concerns that I've spoken. The biggest concern was basically financial and um, family dynamics, care of kids, um, especially if they had to travel a distance for a clinical trial.
Thank you for that. So again, we're going to close here. If you have any further questions, either now or in the future, please feel free to reach out to our helpline. Again, that number was posted in the chat, 888-793-9355. And again, this webinar was recorded and it will be uploaded to our CSC YouTube page very soon. And with that, thank you all so much for attending this webinar this evening. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.